So Melanie Curtis, pro skydiver, author, public speaker, podcast generator. Have I missed anything out there? I think that's
Probably.
How are you?
I'm well. It's a bit of a stormy day, which I kind of like. So it's just nice to talk to you and see you. And I look forward to when it's in person.
Me too.
And we can hug and jump and all of the things.
We're actually on the same time zone. That's unusual.
Yeah. I'm in New Jersey. I'm outside New York City. And love New Jersey. Cross Keys is my home. Drop zone.
It's good to see you. So Mel, before we go any further, I want to find out a little bit about this new project, the High Life Pro Skydiving Team.
Yeah, Highlight. Yeah. I mean, we are living a high life. It's true. I mean, you're not wrong. Highlight is our core mission. So it's 11 of the most elite professional skydiving women in the world. I mean, it's in the country really but we have an amazing collection of women. Our core mission is to inspire women and girls to live a bold, brave life of their own design. So yes, part of our mission is absolutely so what we are doing is a series of high profile demonstration jumps with the intent of elevating that message of championing conversations around gender equality and equality at large with all that's happening in the world for sure. And certainly to hopefully inspire more women to join the sport, because at 13%, so that's the thing, that's the interesting statistic about women in skydiving, is that we represent 13% of the collective, which is low. And you see underrepresentation of women in all kinds of different areas, like business, you see it in media, you see it in skydiving, you see it in sport. In lots of other ways. And representation, is a bigger conversation too, but we're excited at the idea of if people are inspired by witnessing women doing this thing that they never thought might be possible for them, that they could maybe check out their drop zone and see if they want to go make a tandem and see if they might want to ultimately join us in our sky family.
13%, that's incredible. I didn't realize it was that low. When I started 30 years ago, there was many inspirational female skydivers around that I admired and looked up to, and I always have for the last 3 decades, but it's still at 13%. That's incredible.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and listen, I it might be different now, but I don't think so. I think that's the last number that we had. We're just trying to move the needle, because if you think about representation in general, whether it's women, whether it's people of color, whether it's, different marginalized groups, everybody benefits when more of the collective humanity is represented. Yeah. So I'm a deep believer in that, and I'm excited to be a part of a project that is aiming to serve that.
It is a very exciting project, and as a world, it feels like we're going through a change of consciousness. People are becoming more aware of every avenue which has been underrepresented. How did this come about? What was the conversation which brought this team about the Highlight?
Yeah, oh gosh, well, it was a while ago. It was really just, we were, the Women's Skydiving Network reached out to a number of different women leaders in the sport. And it started with just some brainstorming, getting on the phone and having a brainstorm. And the original thought around Highlight and around the demonstration jump arm of the efforts, it was to simply do one jump in Nashville on August 18th, 2020, to do some big giant thing, because Nashville was the location where the final vote took place, was the last state to ratify the 19th Amendment, which secured the right to vote for women in the US. And so that was a huge deal. So once it was ratified by Tennessee, it was basically all but done. And then on August 26th, it was actually signed into law, which is why August 26th is Women's Equality Day.
Right.
Yeah. But then once we had that idea of Nashville, it just grew from there. So as we started to go and do some reconnaissance, we did this trip to Nashville a long time ago to just recon the locations where we could land. And as we started to work on that idea, the creative energies just really took over. And so it's so cool, man. So anyway, our very first demo jump for Highlight, which is not it's not of 2020. We did one in January. Sorry. Our first one really centering around the centennial is this coming or next weekend, July 18th. So we'll be doing that in Seneca Falls, which is known as the birthplace of the women's rights movement in the US.
How has the COVID-19 crisis been affecting your forward movement with this project?
I laugh because oh my God, I laugh because it feels like every day we have to make 18 million more decisions that we just made yesterday so it's one of these beautiful, and the life coach in me is really like, this is such a beautiful transformational time for the world. And there's so many opportunities to build resilience and to build character and to build strength and to realize how strong we are. Because I'll tell you, it is tough to have to make decisions. Like, I keep talking about decision fatigue, but that's just kind of part of what life is like right now. So yeah, we had a lot of plans around big in-person events. And of course, those had to change, which is totally awesome. We are 1000% and more committed to being a leader by example where it comes to safety relative to COVID safety and just keeping others and ourselves safe. So what we did is we are certainly adhering to all the travel advisory and guidelines and stuff like that. And we took our in-person events and we transitioned them all to live feed virtual events. So instead of having a live crowd, we have a production team now that's traveling with us, and they're going to be creating these epic live feeds that we're going to then hopefully share. And the idea, of course, is the footage and the content and the message goes viral so that we get more eyes on what we're doing and more inspiration and ultimately action around people seeing what that is and then taking action for themselves. I would be remiss, sorry, just one more thing, if I didn't say, of course, part of our effort is hopefully to inspire people to use their vote, to use their voice, and really speak up in that form around what they want to see changed in our world and our country.
What an opportunity. What a great gift to take this sport of ours, skydiving, which is it doesn't really have, its first look doesn't have that much benefits to society. We're going up and down in planes, falling through the sky, burning fuel. And to take those skills that you've built up over so many years to find a positive way forward from it, what a great legacy.
Thank you. Well, and it's funny, I've wrestled with that, and I've talked to a lot of professional skydivers over the years and friends over the years about that. And it's very connected to me, to my life coaching work and to my personal calling toward how do we inspire and facilitate growth. And undeniably, for me personally, and I feel like I've seen this with other people over the years too, and many other people, is that when we, at least for me again, I can only speak from my experiences always, but when I jumped out of an airplane for the first time, it was definitely like, I had the idea of there's no way I can do this. There's the old adage, there's no way I could jump out of a perfectly good airplane. And what I contest is missing from that sentence is no way I could jump out of a perfectly good airplane and live. I was like, it surely was certain death, it's like so dramatic. But when I landed and when I lived, when I was not dead, and and again, this is not something I'm thinking consciously as an 18-year-old kid, basically. It's so undeniably clear that mindset shift of the things that I think I can't do, I might be able to do. It's not the, super fucking life coachy thing where it's like, anything you want to do, you can do, because that's just not true. I'm one of my friends, I was talking to him on the phone. He's like, I'm not going to be the next, quarterback of the Dolphins, right? That's not going to happen. And that's okay. but fundamentally from a perspective of overcoming fear and moving and taking action through our fear. And this is relevant to so many things, whether we're rising into using our voice in terms of supporting equality today, right? And speaking up and talking about and saying, okay, I support Black Lives Matter. You know, I support gender equality. I disagree with that decision that the Supreme Court made, or whatever. Like however we're using our voice in the spheres that we choose to use it. It's important, and I think skydiving gives people an initial access to that opening of the mind in a powerful way.
That really hits the nail on the head. It's something that getting into aviation, becoming a skydiver, it does open your mind to change. You know, people can have ideas and be stuck in their ways a little bit through upbringing or whatever and feel like that's how they've got to be. But that's not how it is. There's this great thought process that I like to talk about. When I first went to a drop zone, and I'm sure you'll feel this, you were a member of the public and they were skydivers. And then you did a skydive, but you're still a member of the public, but you're having a go at what they do. Then there's a transition that takes place and that you become a skydiver. And it's a very gradual thing. So your mind does change. Can you remember that when you started jumping, when you didn't feel like somebody, like a fraud, like somebody who was trying to do this thing that they do?
Well, my story is honestly a little bit different, but and I'll share my story, but I try to really empathetically put myself in the shoes of other people, both as somebody entering the sport, and this is, again, goes back to representation, is if women and people of color and women of color are represented and we can help move those needles, then more people will feel able, my hope is more people, more women, just everyone will feel more like, oh, this is also a place for me. That's exciting to me, that idea that we can start to really make change and help that. For me, it's different because I grew up on a drop zone. My dad owned a drop zone. He was a pilot, so it was my backyard. Right. Literally, there's a grass strip behind my house. So it was a little bit more like, I'm just afraid of doing the thing. You know, I'm just afraid of actually jumping out of the plane. And I spent multiple years sitting through the first jump course as a young kid. Yeah, it's upstate New York in Verona Skydiving Center is basically my dad's house, Curtis Airport. So yeah, but I definitely remember as a young jumper, you know, just being nervous going to places and I don't know. I don't know what it's like for each person, but I don't recall feeling excluded too much. You know what I mean? But definitely there were times in my career where people were threatened by my enthusiasm and stuff. So they tried to keep me a little bit down, but when it's pure and when it's real and when it's authentic and it's, you know, when you're doing an earnest, honest thing and being your honest self, then that can't really ever be held down. And so that's the nature of my story for sure, is that because I was honest and in pure, genuine love, you know, that there was no stopping that, you know, it just was a matter of time is what I feel like it was for me.
What about the transition into being a life coach? What was that journey? How did that start?
Yeah. Oh, love it. Gosh, one of the other great loves of my life, skydiving, life coaching, I say this a lot where I love people. I feel like you and I are alike like this. Yeah. I absolutely love people. And I say this, even the people that I don't like, I like.
Everybody's got the opportunity to.
Yeah. And it's not like I'm going to let somebody close to me that I don't trust or that I think what I'm talking about is I'm deeply fascinated by the human experience. And I have like just a deep love and empathy, and I care and I enjoy and really like hearing other people's stories. So anyway, one day, I will never forget this moment. This was just one of my transition or just moments in my career that I won't forget. I was running Skydive Elsinore, sort of doing the marketing and events thing and doing the whole Elsinore, you know, sector of my skydiving career, which I loved, deeply loved. I loved being there. I loved everything about it. And so one day I'm walking across the drop zone. I'm walking across the like gravel driveway as you enter Skydive Elsinore. And I had this just subtle twinge of intuition hit my being. Yeah. And it wasn't loud. It wasn't like a Mack truck, like, oh shit, there you go, girl, you've had this fucking awakening. It was more like, hey, just pay attention. And what it was sort of telling me to pay attention to was I knew in my soul that if professional skydiving was all that I did in that form that I currently was living it, I knew it wouldn't be enough. Right. Like I knew I wouldn't be happy forever. And so at that point, I really didn't, I was so I really was happy doing it. So I was like, well, shit, what if, and I'm just lucky I listened. So I started a personal inquiry and go, what do I like? What am I good at? If I didn't do this, what would I do? You know, and that led me to researching and yada, yada. And I ultimately found life coaching, and I immediately thought it was a total scam. I was like, life coaching? No, that sounds horrible and stupid and totally like BS. So anyway, long story short, of course, I had to figure out, I thought it was maybe part of my calling, which was also annoying because I'm like, oh God, this thing that sounds so not cool, you know, so, and ultimately I've discovered it was real, and the rest is sort of history.
And that leads on naturally to public speaking, to professional speaking on stage, which I followed the journey, your start of that quite closely. And you took to it like a duck to water. Tell me about it.
Oh my God. Well, I'm glad it looked like that to you, Regan, because that is certainly not how it has felt. I really care a lot as the version of a, you know, public figure that I am, the version of having an audience online and just using my own voice as a writer and, you know, writing for the magazine and this and that. And just, I care a lot about courageous self-expression as our avenue to our highest contribution to ourselves and other people. And so I do that in my writing. And I sort of recognize that if I can cultivate the skill set of speaking in public and on a stage or whatever, I felt like, oh, I'll probably like that. I'll probably be good at that. And I have struggled for the entirety of my career as a public figure, as a personal brand or whatever, that I always was like, oh God, people are just going to think I'm trying to, like, I really just don't actually like being the person on the top leadership spotlight role. But I also, with that, had to acknowledge that there was some calling in me that was like, I need to do this because this is the highest contribution I can make. Like, it really, for me, is born out of an energy around contribution to others. Right. And so as a result, relative to public speaking, I freaking tortured myself, man. It's been painful. Like I worked with a business coach and you know, you just got to get up and do it. And you just got to be tortured and you got to iterate just like anything else of value. You get up there, you iterate, you suck at it, you improve, you debrief yourself. And so I did a ton of Facebook Lives. I'm less tortured by Facebook Live now, but that's a way I was able to iterate more quickly on like a public speaking energy and fear coming up in my body. So there's a ton I could say about that, but I'm definitely getting better, but it's taken me multiple years.
At the end of a public speaking event with an audience, a live audience, and it goes well and you get the applause, do you get that adrenaline rush like you would from a skydive? Because I do. Yeah, absolutely. It's a different experience than a skydive, but yeah, absolutely. The reason is because it's connected to a deep value. And this is the thing. I always say this about skydiving as well. And this is where the life coach in me, the deeper part of my understanding, at least that I've cultivated for myself individually, again,
it's different for every person. So I'm not trying to speak for anybody or everybody at all in any part of this interview, is that it's connected to a value. So skydiving, the literal act of skydiving is connected to the deep value for me of freedom. Like, you feel so free, you feel so present, and that is an unbelievable release from fear thinking, from any kind of daily stress we might have, or any kind of worry that we might be carrying. We just can't have it in that moment. And so that's a big deal to me. On top of being, of course, a community of people who really, I believe, for the most part, are rooted in love. Even if we're doing our best to, like I said, improve how the skydiving community has operated from the past, we're in our own transformation as a community. So, like, again, we can be rooted in love and still have a lot of work to do. So I want to make sure I'm saying that, because I think that's important to distinguish now more than ever. And so, yeah, it's beautiful, because I feel like when I do that, even when I suck, Regan, on stage, and listen, I've had I've had experiences where it's like, it's fine, you know, like the audience isn't throwing tomatoes or anything, but I've had experiences where I was just nervous and I didn't do that well. I wasn't super inspirational and shit or whatever. And I still feel really good about that, because it's not about how I perform. Yeah. It's about me getting up there at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know all about that, girl. I've been
on stage, I know.
On live television with an awards ceremony with the results in front of me and unable to read the names. I couldn't read the foreign names.
Oh,
and
God.
I just make it up and just just throw it out quick. Oh, dear. But, for me, being on stage with an audience, there's so many parallels to skydiving. Before the jump, in the plane, the yellow light, when that door opens, that to me is an extremely special time. Everything just comes, vroom, and you're right there. And it's so, sometimes I just shout out to the plane, I love this bit. And people are like, what? This bit, I love this bit. Oh, as we're starting to come out.
Right now.
And that's very similar to when you are about to go on stage. Feel like if you're doing a public speech and your name gets called and you've got to walk on.
Yeah.
It's so very similar, I find.
It's true. And this is something I find that's similar in skydiving and in public speaking and anything really, is preparation really does matter, right? So like when we are more prepared. So back in the day as a public speaker, I was like convicted that I'm better when I just wing it. And the real truth around that sentiment is it's false, in the sense that it is just, I was not practiced enough. I had not rehearsed enough. I was tortured by the fear of outcome, and I was very attached to people liking me and me doing a good job. So like I had to really get super honest with myself and go, girl, you got to do more. You got to do a fuck ton more work if you think you're going to really feel more at ease before going on stage. And that's the same as in skydiving, I think. And I mean that from a gentle, I mean that gently, as in we want to get coaching. We want to iterate in ways, and we want to practice in these ways that allow us to be in the experience, but not so far beyond. Like if I were to give a TED talk back then, that would have been probably, it would have killed me, in the sense of it would have been so incredibly stressful, which is why doing 2-ways and doing smaller groups and doing stuff like that to iterate and get our confidence growing and to improve our skills, that matters. That's why doing a bunch of Facebook Lives or doing a talk at your local library or doing some, those types of small things that maybe somebody who has an elevated view of what they should be doing is like, really, you get that awesome, sort of peak experience all from what you do ahead of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, skydiving, it is life-changing in that way. And it is, it's something which many people can't see themselves doing. But I think in all parts of aviation, there's something which ties us all together. And I only realized this a few years ago, is the whole experience of, for a weekend, being outdoors, being on an airfield, having the grass beneath your feet. I think anybody that flies as a hobby has that in them without really realizing how special it is, because so many people spend the whole weekend indoors. That's a special.
Wow. We could do an entire show on connecting with nature and listen to our podcast, trustthejourney.today. Shameless plug. But we talk a lot about the spiritual seeking side of both skydiving and just nature, connection to universal love, stuff like that. But aviation, it is an interesting thing because my first flight was when I was 3 months old because my dad's a pilot.
Yeah.
And so I've spent literally effectively my entire life connected to the experience of being above the earth. And I've written many a time in my column in Blue Skies magazine and my book and stuff about even sitting in a commercial jet and being amazed still, like it never gets old for me. To each their own, right? Looking out of the commercial jet, like I'm still just, I love it so much. Being under canopy or just looking out the door before you exit, spotting, people, I don't understand people who just stare at the yellow light. I'm like, from a safety perspective, please look out. But like from a perspective of just being immersed in this amazing experience we get to have, so it's incredible what my skydiving skills and just our skydiving skills can give us access to. And that takes us all the way back to highlight, is that without doing all of the jumps and all of the work and all of the things that we did to earn the skills that we have, and this is the thing about skydiving too, and I take this very seriously, is that we are representing our sport. We are representing this thing that I believe could really give people this amazing awakening. Yeah. And so it matters. I need to be current. I need to be trained. I need to not take it, I got a lot of jumps, I'm good. No, like full respect all the time, especially even more so when we're going to be in the public eye representing our sport at an even more magnified level.
With highlight and with the demos, what is your plan after the landing? What do you do? I mean, you see demo teams are signing a few autographs and pack and go. Have you got you must have a plan.
Yeah.
After landing plan.
Yeah, we're gonna of course land and be psyched. 6 feet apart, COVID safety, full social distancing is in effect. We'll put our masks back on because we are going to be down on the ground, but we'll still do interviews. So 6 feet apart interviews with our announcer who's going to be there. And we're going to have flags to sign and to give to our partner organizations. So we've been working with the Women's Suffrage Centennial Commission, which is super cool. They're an amazing organization. They're a commission that was formed for this specific centennial anniversary. So they've been helping us a lot. The New York State Park Department, which is we're not landing in a New York State Park because you're not allowed to do that, but they're across the river, and it's again where the 1848 original Seneca Falls Convention took place. So we'll sign a flag for them. We'll do those interviews and that's it. We have a bunch of pre-roll footage and photos to share, and it's gonna be a cool show. So Seneca Falls will be our first shot, our first run at it. So we'll see how it goes. We're not really pre-promoting it tons because we're like, how's it gonna go? But then the rest of our jumps in August, we're gonna really, really ramp up.
I look forward to seeing it, and I look forward to getting the footage out there with Air Sports News.
Yes.
Highlight Pro Skydiving Team.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks for joining us, Mel. Melanie Curtis.
Thank you
very much.